So hi, my name is Tess Bergfjord. I belong to the Hands-On Homeschoolers 4-H Club. And I'm super excited to talk to you guys about horse judging. It's a passion of mine. And fittingly, the name of my presentation is Horse Judging at Halter. So before we really get started about breaking down the horse and seeing what horse judging is, I wanted to talk about why it's important to people other than the competitions for 4-H. So it's a good reason to do and learn horse judging because knowing the conformation of your horse can help you pick the right horse for the job that you're doing. So I'm going to be focusing on conformation of halter horses or horses that you might see in a quarter horse show. But for example, a hunter horse is going to have a lot different needs conformationally than a horse doing Western pleasure. So it's important to know how horses put together so you can pick the correct horse for the job. This is also why people in auction places are able to pick magnificent horses out without only seeing it once, because you can tell with their conformation. So with that being said, we're going to be going over balance, structural correctness, muscularity, and breed and sex characteristics. These are the 4 most important things to consider when looking at a horse for judging. So in order of importance, we're going to start with balance. Pretty much with balance, you're just thinking, does everything fit together? You want everything to look proportionate when talking about balance. So starting with the head and neck, you want there to be a 2-to-1 ratio between the top of the neck and the bottom side. It should be double on the top and half on the bottom. And this can help with stretching, with collection. If your horse is opposite of the two, it makes it a lot harder for them to collect properly. And here's another example, a 2-to-1 ratio. You want the top of the back to be half the size as the bottom half. And again, this is for collection, just for appearance-wise. The shorter the back, the more even the stride is going to be, type of thing. So this is the example of the perfect quarter horse. It's the ideal what we look for. And as you can see with this horse, it's about half at the bottom than it is at the top. And then it's inverted for the back. So the half of the back is in double at the bottom. Okay, so looking at these 2 horses, just think about which one might have more balance. I'm going to put the lines on them in a second. So you can see that the horse on your left, on your right, is going to be the chestnut. He's going to have a lot more balance to him. His neck is about the same as the bay horse, but his back is drastically different. You can see that the bay horse is almost the same length backwise. Okay, 45-degree angles. So both the pastern and the shoulder should be of 45 to 50 degrees angle-wise. And this is really important because it has to do with the horse's back and their movement. So the steeper of the angle of the shoulder, the longer the back will be. So if you have a horse with a steep shoulder, you're automatically going to be seeing a longer back. And for this type of class that we'd be judging, that'd be not what we'd want to see. The pastern, the steeper the pastern is, the choppier the gait is going to be. So again, this is a pretty close to ideal quarter horse. You can see that the angle of his shoulder is almost exactly 45 degrees. I took a protractor at home, and I think it was about 46 degrees exactly. His pasterns are about 45 as well. And you can see he's very well balanced because of that. And here are the lines to show you. So I wanted to bring up hunter horses it's desirable for them to have a longer back because it helps them get over the fences more smoothly. So this is a good example of a correct hunter horse, but it would not be what we were looking for in a conformation class for quarter horses. You can see that steeper shoulder causes the back to look almost exactly the same from top to bottom. So head, shoulder, back, and hip, you want them all to be the same length. The head can be slightly shorter, but overall you want them to be the same. With this ideal quarter horse, you can see that they are almost all exactly the same lengthwise. When I made these lines, I took the same line and put them all in the same places. And then depth of heart. This is to make sure your horse's legs aren't too long for the body or vice versa. You want the heart curve, which is from the withers to the chest, to be the same length as the forearm to the hoof. And this horse is, again, a very good example of that. Okay, so moving on to structural correctness. This is something that all horses should have. Like when you're looking for a correct horse, most horses should have the same structural correctness. So these are some examples. The ideal position is all the way at the end here. Toes out is when the feet stick outward. Bow-legged is when the knees of the horse are set too far out. Narrow-chested, as you can see, their feet are too close together. This is also called. And then base narrow is when they're standing too close together. Knock-kneed is when the knees are too far inward. And pigeon-toed is when the hooves are too far close together. So here are some examples of these different problems. And it's important to know what these different types are because it directly affects the horse's movement. You can see here at B, this is toes out, and this causes winging in. You can see with this pattern here, they actually hit themselves while they're moving. Pigeon-toed is their movement defect is called paddling, and this is when they move their feet outward like this. And this doesn't cause any interference, but it's not a desirable trait. The last one is with base narrow. This is called plating, and the horse quite literally walks in front of itself. So instead of that correct straight movement when your horse is going forward, you're looking at a horse that's stepping over itself. None of these are desirable traits. They can cause problems with your horse, especially when you're going fast. So here are some other examples of conformation defects. Really the one biggest thing that we want to make sure our horse doesn't have is calf knee. Calf knee horses, which is the one all the way at the end, is when the knee is set too far backward, and this can cause a lot of problems with the joints because you're putting a lot of pressure on them at all times. So horses that are calf knee should not be used for any sort of hard going exercises. These are some examples. Camped under, you can see the horse is too far underneath itself. Camped out is the opposite. Buck-kneed, the knees are too far forward, and calf-kneed, as you can see, the line going down it, the knees are too far back, which would cause serious problems in high intensity exercises. They fall apart very easily. Then some more conformation defects. The hind legs aren't quite as important as the other ones. They do directly affect movement. I want to talk about post-legged and sickle hop, which is stands under and leg too straight. Stands under or sickle hop can cause forging, which is when the horse hits itself as they're moving. And legs too straight or post-legged is when they have too little angle in their hocks and can cause serious issues in movement. Unfortunately, conformation classes now are looking too much like post-legged because they want to have that straight leg, but none of these horses can be used for actual exercise because they have too little angle in their hock. Okay, so third in the level of importance is muscularity. And so these are the different areas where we might find and look at muscularity. I will show you them all in the next slide. So right here you find your pectoral region in your forearm. These are the two things that you'll be looking at as you're judging them from the front end. Into the hind, we'll be looking at the point of the buttocks. You want that to be the widest part of your horse's body. So looking at the three horses here, So you can tell that A would obviously win the confirmation class. You can see that V up in the pectorals is when the horse actually has a V in their chest. And the more of that you have, the more correct it is. And so A would have the most points on muscularity in the class. These are some, this is how we look at the horses viewed from the side. We're going to look at the shoulder, the forearm, the back, and the chest. When it comes to judging from the side, you can tell this horse doesn't have a lot of delineation or definition in the muscle, which are terms to just show how the horse is muscled and how well you can see it. You can see he's very light in muscling. This horse here has pretty good muscling, but I'd like to see a little bit more. There's not much definition. You can see he's getting a little bit more bulkier than our first horse. And finally, heavy muscling. You can see that there's obvious definition in this horse. He's a beast. He'd do very well in a class when it comes to his muscling. So finally, the least important part of breed classes, but also it's important, are breed and sex characteristics. And this pretty much just asks you, does the horse look like that breed? And a mare should look like a mare, and a gelding should look masculine. You don't want them to look opposite. So here's an example. This Arabian here has a very dish face, the high tail set, the whole package. He looks like an Arab, he looks great. Looking at this Arab, he has a dish face, but he doesn't have the neck. So breed and sex characteristics-wise, this horse would place over that horse, because that horse just truly looks like an Arab. So, in conclusion, these are the 4 different factors to judging. We're going to look at balance, structural correctness, muscling, and breed and sex characteristics. And horse judging is truly a life skill for horse people. It helps you figure out what you need in your horse and what characteristics you'll need for your discipline. I hope this sort of gave you some interest in horse judging, and thank you.